Hey friend, I'm Meagen Berquist, and I'm a small-town teacher who found that I wanted to live more sustainably in 2016. There weren't many sustainable alternatives in my area, so I founded Stella and Sol Sustainables to remedy that. If Google and Pinterest University have left you overwhelmed and unsure of where to go or what to do, you've come to the right place. I'm passionate about giving you the tips, tricks, and education to help you along your journey towards reducing your waste and maximizing your impact. Join me as I explore home, health, and the environment in pursuit of a balanced eco-life. In this podcast, I share my ups and downs along the zero-waste journey while giving you realistic, actionable steps towards an eco-friendly life that works for you. This is Zero Waste Simplified.
Hello, and welcome to the podcast. I am your host, Meagen Berquist, and this is Zero Waste Simplified. I'm sorry about the delay in getting this episode live. It's been a rough couple of weeks, and I've been getting myself ready and my house ready for going back to school, which starts next week. Fun. And I had to let a few things slide in order for me to not become a depression zombie. Today, though, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite places in the home, and that's the kitchen. I love being in the kitchen and whipping up goodies for Mr. Grizzly and I, but I don't love the amount of waste that often comes with this room. It's no surprise that when you look up zero waste, one of the first recommendations is how to reduce your waste in the kitchen between all the food being wrapped in plastic, food waste, and the large amount of disposables present in this area of the home makes this room a zero waste minefield. Here are 5 ways that you can improve your kitchen to go more zero waste. Number 1, remember that zero waste does not mean zero plastic. I know that I harp on this, but this is something that I 100% screwed up on when I first started zero waste. I fell into the lie that zero waste meant that there should be absolutely zero plastic in my life whatsoever, and I was absolutely gung-ho on that. So I threw out a lot of reusable plastic containers that were perfectly fine, that absolutely could have been used more. There was no reason for them to get thrown out. They were perfectly good. I still reuse and buy new Ziploc baggies for portioning out and freezing my shredded cheese that I buy in bulk. Your reusable containers can be plastic. The goal here is to minimize instead of eliminating plastic completely, because if you focus on eliminating completely without need, then it just leads to unnecessary waste instead of reducing your waste. You're actually creating more. So be mindful, be very intentional about where you are reducing and make it sustainable for you. Number 2, food. So much food. When you see kitchen and zero waste, often you'll see buy in bulk. Now, what does buying in bulk mean? In most zero waste spheres, buying bulk means buying unpackaged goods, specifically bringing your own jars and bags to fill with your purchase. Now, that's great if you have access to a bulk store and you have the money it takes for bulk, but that's not everyone. I live in a rural area where the closest bulk store is 25 minutes away by car, and it's more expensive. So I can't necessarily afford that on a regular basis. However, one thing I can do is that I have a membership to my local wholesale club, BJ's, and I use that a lot. I get the things that I use on a regular basis in large containers. This not only generally saves me money by buying in the larger amount, but it also reduces the amount of packaging overall, which in turn reduces waste. One big caveat about this, though, is that especially if you're buying produce, you need to make sure that you'll use whatever it is that you buy before it spoils. Otherwise, you're just creating more waste and wasting your money, and no one needs to waste money. For example, I buy a 10-pound bag of baking soda because I use it in my cleaning so often. While yes, it does come in a plastic bag, it's significantly less expensive than buying just one of those little boxes at a time. The expense has to be part of the sustainability equation. Sustainable doesn't just mean sustainable for the planet. While yes, that's why we're doing it, it also has to be a sustainable practice for you. If you're doing something and it's not something that you can keep going for the long run, then it's not going to stick. It is so much more sustainable to make those little changes so that they become habit than it is to go completely all in on zero waste for 3 months and then fall off the bandwagon because it's too restrictive. For grocery shopping, bring your reusable containers to the grocery store. And this is not just at a co-op or a bulk store. Most grocery stores will allow you to bring reusable containers for the deli, for produce, and all of that. I've also heard that you can do this with raw meat. I've not yet tried that, but I will keep you updated on that. If you get pre-cooked meats or cheeses from the deli, you can always ask. It does no harm in asking. And you might be surprised at how many are willing and ready to say yes. If you encounter pushback, ask if you can talk to the manager or put in a comment card either directly in the store or on the company's website. They will listen to their customers, especially if they keep getting the same comment over and over. They will change their practices. If you go through a lot of deli meat, pro tip, see if they have the pre-cooked option in your meat section. If they do, most delis will slice it up for you and put it in your own containers. That's what I do for the ham for Mr. Grizzly's breakfast sandwiches. Have an organization system in your fridge. Where do the cheeses go? Where do the veggies go? If you eat meat, where does the meat go? Are things separated? Are the veggies separated from the fruits so they're not going bad a lot faster than they really should? Having this organization system will not only allow you to have a better understanding of what you have in your fridge, and you don't have to be playing fridge shuffle and fridge Tetris every time that you go grocery shopping, but it also just makes it a lot easier for doing stuff in general. Which leads me to have a running inventory on what you have in your fridge and pantry, either on a phone note or document or on a piece of paper. This is going to make everything a lot easier when it comes to food waste and food prep. Make a note from that inventory of what staples are worth having on hand consistently that will make it easy to create a meal from scratch, and make sure you always have them on hand. This saves me time and again because I know that there are a couple of meals that I always have the ingredients on hand for that are not difficult to whip up. So it's 45 and I'm exhausted from a day of teaching. I don't have to do a whole lot of mental gymnastics to figure out, oh, what are Mr. Grizzly and I going to have for dinner? I have those as an option. Make meal planning and grocery shopping list making a priority. This will lead to less food waste because when we're out shopping, if we don't have a strong idea of what we're looking for and we're just kind of going for whatever feels right, one, we can often miss ingredients for the things that we're intending to make and have to go on another run, but it also leads to impulse purchases. The more often we're in the store, the more likely it is to give into those impulse purchases that lead to unnecessary waste. Make meal planning easier by creating a list of your favorite meals. This makes it really simple. So I just go in and I pick a few dishes that we haven't had in a while, and it's really simple. Or you can have dedicated themes like pizza on Saturdays or Taco Tuesday or anything like that. Just find something that works for you, and if it stops working for you, change it. Nothing is set in stone. And one last note on meal planning, look to add in a meatless meal each week. This will reduce the carbon footprint as well as the plastic, since it's easier to get veggies plastic free than it is to get meat plastic free. Eat your leftovers. Now, this is as much to me as it is to you. I've always really struggled with remembering to eat the leftovers that are in my fridge, especially when I'm on vacation and I don't have that routine of making my lunch for school to spur me on. And I have so many science experiments that I've had to throw into the compost because I just didn't eat it. It's estimated that up to 40% of food brought into the home is wasted. If you use part of something and aren't planning on using the rest of it anytime soon, pop it in the freezer in usable chunks. For example, I bought some fresh ginger for my food, and instead of throwing it away because I let it languish in my drawer, I grated it and froze it in an ice cube tray. Now I have pre-portioned ginger that I can just toss into a recipe. One thing that you can do to help you remember to eat your leftovers is to, back to that organization, is in your fridge have a shelf or basket or something that is an eat first area. I know I'm notorious, especially when I'm having one of my depression flares, to just grab whatever is the absolute easiest. Those of you who have mental health issues know this feeling where doing something and making something is just too much mental energy, so you just grab like a slice of cheese or a couple of slices of ham, and that's your meal. The easier that you make it, the more likely it is that you'll actually use it. Number 3, do a single use inventory. What disposables are you using in your kitchen most often? Where are you able to adjust and make swaps? Some of the most common single-use items in the kitchen are paper towels, plastic wrap, sponges, hand and dish soap, napkins, coffee filters, and paper plates. For sustainable options, for example, switch your paper towels for cloth towels, paperless towels, or rags. Your sponges for dishes, you can swap for reusable or compostable sponges, a Swedish dishcloth, or cotton dish rag. For dish soap, you could use powdered or bar or refill option if you have that available in your area. Just list it all out, figure out where you can make those tiny swaps, and soon you will have a lot more reusables in your kitchen. The next thing, number 4, DIY your cleaners. It is so much less expensive and wasteful to make your own cleaners. By and large, you only need about 5 ingredients to clean your whole house. You don't need specialized cleaners for every possible surface in your home. There are 2 main cleaners that I use. There's a vinegar all-purpose spray that I use for most of the surfaces in my house. Vinegar is acidic, which means that it helps kill the bacteria when wiping stuff down. But I also have granite countertops, so I can't use vinegar on that because it will destroy the sealing coating that it has on it. So for that, I have a rubbing alcohol granite cleaner where I just take a 1-to-1 mixture of alcohol. And so what I do with that is I have a rubbing alcohol granite cleaner where I just take a 1-to-1 mixture of rubbing alcohol and water, and it works perfectly. As I mentioned earlier, baking soda is amazing. You might just think of it as, hey, this is something I occasionally put in my baking recipes, but it's an absolute killer scrubber. So I always use this for my bathtub when I finally get sick of having so much soap scum on it. Just add a little bit of water at a time until it's a thick paste, and then you use a rag, and you will be amazed at how great the scrubbing quality of it is. It is also really good for getting stains out from your clothes. And if you need a little bit more help in removing stains, you can also use hydrogen peroxide, which is, I think it's 3 to 5% that you can find at most grocery stores and convenience stores. It acts as a bleach. Now, when I say bleach, a lot of people get defensive and kind of rear up and is like, oh no, we don't want that. Bleach is not just a single chemical. There are a bunch of different kinds of bleach, all that it means is that something is brightened by exposure to sunlight or chemicals, and that the compound cleans and sterilizes. It has absolutely nothing to do with it only being a chlorine bleach, which is one of the more dangerous ones. Both lemon juice and hydrogen peroxide are bleaches, and both are much safer than Clorox. Washing soda is fantastic, is all purpose, and you don't even necessarily have to buy it like that. You can, of course, but I make my own because it's super duper easy. I just pop a bunch of baking soda in a pan in the oven for an hour, and voila, I have washing soda. If you heard my last episode, you know that one of the things that I do in order to make sure that I'm able to continue doing my zero waste work and lifestyle when I'm having mental health issues is that I bought a dishwasher to help out with the dishes so I don't have to turn to disposables. For that, I use vinegar, just a straight up white vinegar, as my dishwasher rinse, and I make my own dishwasher tablets, which I have included in the show notes. Our last thing, composting. We're going to be doing a whole episode on this next week, doing a real deep dive. But for now, composting is putting your food scraps so that they can rot together and break down into usable fertilizer in soil and compost that you can use to improve the health of your soil. Or you can donate it to a community garden, anything. The reason why this is so important is because when food scraps go into the landfill, which is where everything ends up when we toss our trash, it doesn't break down the way that it's designed to. It needs oxygen in order to properly decompose, and because things in the landfill are packed so tightly, it creates an anaerobic environment, which just means without oxygen. And because of that, instead of creating this nutrient-rich pile of organic material, what it actually does is it releases this gas called methane. And methane is a huge issue because it's a greenhouse gas, and one that is 80 times more potent for the first 20 years of creation. This is especially important considering our projected point of no return for climate change is just 9 years away in 2030. So, to review what you can do to make your zero waste kitchen, remember that zero waste does not mean zero plastic. Really focus in on your food, and that could be reducing your food waste by having an organization system in your fridge, having a running inventory and meal planning from it, or simply eating your leftovers. You can do a disposables inventory and figure out which swaps you can make. You can DIY your cleaners, and you can compost. Choose one and start there. Don't overwhelm yourself by trying to do this all at once, because as I said, these swaps need to be sustainable for you. I have made all of these changes over the course of a 5-year period. I'm not here making 20 different changes in a month. It's not sustainable for me. I would relapse. Make it easy for you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I really appreciate it. Every time that I see that people are downloading my podcast, I am so excited and so happy that I get to share the joys of reducing waste with you. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week when we do a deep dive into composting. Thank you so much for joining me here at Zero Waste Simplified. It means so much that you chose to spend some of your time with me. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll get all new episodes as soon as they drop. You can find all resources and links mentioned in today's episode at zerowastesimplified.com. Want some more eco-friendly living advice and stories in your life? Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest at Stella and Saul. Like what you heard? Rate and review the podcast in Apple Store or your podcatcher of choice, or share it with a friend. This is the best way to help the podcast grow and reach even more people with eco-friendly information and advice. See you next time.